Hi, Veronica, foster parent, back with you. This is part 2 of the Teen Chronicles. So if you have not already watched part 1, please go back and watch part 1 of the Teen Chronicles before watching this particular video. So in part 1, I talked in general about fostering teens and why that's important. I also talked about, just some things that we've encountered and some lessons learned from us as foster parents. And here in part 2, I want to highlight some of the teens that have stayed with us. As I mentioned in part 1, we've had teens anywhere from one night to a month. And so I want to share a few of those stories. None of them are long enough to have their own video. So that's why I devoted this video to sharing the stories of several of our teens. I do want to say that we have fostered over 10 teens. I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 teens. So almost half as many teens as we have other ages, so infant up to age 12. And but I would say overall it's been a positive experience. We've had a chance to connect with a lot of the teens, and our hope is that no matter what length of time they're with us, that they have a positive takeaway that there are healthy families, because they may come out of a home that has domestic violence or drugs or prostitution, abuse, whatever. And so we want them to know that life does not have to be that way, that they can make other choices. For their own lives as they're entering adulthood, right? And as they're finding a partner, for their children, but also give them hope. Hopefully, if they're still underage, give them hope that they may be fostered long-term or adopted by a forever family. So because of the dynamics of our home and our biological children, and specifically the fact that we had, at the time when we fostered most of our teens, we had a teen girl. So our quote unquote house rule was that we only fostered other teen girls. Now, we have made exceptions to that. There is a time where we had a 13-year-old boy. There was another time, I think he was maybe 12. So we have made exceptions to it. It's just on a case-by-case basis. I think if there's no other message I send to you in this video other than the stories, is that please be flexible. Don't have a hard, fast, these are the only children that we'll accept. You do want to kind of be open, because who knows? You don't know what you're called to do, or where, if you're a person of faith, or where God may lead you. So having said that, like I said, we primarily have taken teen girls because we have a teen girl. And something else that we do in our family, we always consult. I'm the one that placement calls to request if we can take a child. And I always consult my family to see if they're on board, because the placements don't impact just me. They also impact my husband, and they impact any of our biological children that live with us. And so we have had even our adult children from time to time. They've lived with us temporarily. Like, for example, one was here while he was waiting to buy his own home. But having a teenage daughter is even more important, because we don't want anything that'll, like invade her space or make her feel as though this child is taken away from something that her needs. Because again, as a parent of biological children, your first calling is to your biological family, your nuclear family. So again, all of the stories I'm going to share are, my family was totally on board with these. So we did have She was a teen girl, African American, I would say maybe 15 years old. She came with her brother. She had a younger brother. When they first came to our home, first of all, when I got the call, I was told that they needed placement for a sibling group, a teen, and again, the younger male. And they said that it was only for the night. They told me that they did have a permanent placement lined up, and they had taken the children to another home, but the little boy threw a tantrum, and that family was like, whoa, we can't deal with this. Hey, you have to come back and get him. So the worker came back and got him, and she called and she was like, Veronica, please, can you please just keep him for the night? And I was like, sure. I said, now I don't know if he'll stay here either. He probably will cry. And she said, but you know what? She said, I know you can do it. You got this. So she brought them. Sure enough, little boy's crying. And so the worker was she was like, maybe I should stay for a little while. I said, no. I said, if he's crying while you're here, he's going to cry while you're gone. So, may as well leave. So she went ahead and left, and he was crying. I want to go home. I want to go, and I hope I may be saying it sounding like I didn't have much compassion for him, which I definitely did. But again, he was older, guys. He wasn't like a little toddler. He was older. He evidently had been crying for a long time because it was, they had attempted to place him someplace else. So we're talking a couple hours here. And it wasn't, I've had my children, my biological children and foster children, enough to know when they're what I call crocodile tears. You're trying to squeeze something out of your eyes. So not to take anything away from his emotions, because I know he was scared and upset and unhappy, but this was kind of a little extra, right? It was a little dramatic. So, and his sister, the teenager, was exhausted, right? So, and again, this is her story, but I think that she was so caught up in taking care of her brother and trying to help him that she was neglecting herself. I could just see that on her face. And so they're sitting together on the sofa. They just sat for a little while, and he's just crying. And so finally I was like, and I got to tell you guys, I already told you I'm not an expert at this, right? Even though I've parented several biological children of my own. We know as parents, a lot of it is trial and error. And so with it, but in this case, I went to him and I said, look, you are fine. Your sister's here. I said, I know you don't know us, but we're not going to do anything to you. You are going to be fine. I said, now listen, you've been crying too long now. You've been here for half an hour and this has gone on too long. I said, I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. And I looked at my watch. I'm going to give you 5 more minutes to cry, and then you're going to zip it and you're going to get ready for bed. Do you understand? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah. I think it caught him off guard. And so I set a timer, and he, note, not one tear. And then the alarm went off. I said, okay, 5 minutes are up. And he stopped. I said, now we're going to get ready for bed, and you're going to be a good boy, and you're going to go to sleep, and the worker's going to come get you in the morning. Do you understand? He was like, so I don't know what would have happened if he had called my bluff, y'all. I have no idea. I didn't think that far ahead, but I do know that it worked. And those children got ready for bed. I told his sister, I said, you take a shower, and they ate. And I told her, I said, I've got him. If you want to go to bed, you go to bed. And she just looked at me and said, thank you. And that girl went to bed and slept for, I think, probably 10 hours straight. Maybe not that. It's probably an exaggeration, but I know it was at least 8 hours. And then, he kind of stayed up and he watched TV a little bit. And then eventually we put him to bed. But again, I think it was just, I was one of those individuals as the big sister. She had kind of taken on the caregiver role. and she was exhausted. And so for that night, at least, we gave her the opportunity to take a nice shower, eat a hot meal, and then get some rest. So that is I's quick story. Um, Another teen, we had Dee. She was a Caucasian female that was with us a night or two. Can't remember if it was one night or two nights, but she, I feel, fit right in with our family. She was roughly 17 years old. The only, yeah, I believe she was here two nights, because the first night, again, you don't lay I don't lay my house rules, but by night two, I do remember talking with her about some of the house rules. I did catch her. So now the way our house is set up, the children's bedroom's on the second floor. Okay. Ours is on the main, my bedroom is on the main level. But I always, I go up and down them stairs pretty regularly, and because I like to know what's going on. I peek in on the children. So Dee had her own room, and our daughter had, her own room. And then we have another spare room upstairs. So Dee told me she was going to go to her room. And so she went to her room, and then I just went up there later to check on her, and she was in my daughter's room. Now my daughter wasn't obviously home at the time. So she's in my daughter's room, kind of looking around. And I was like, hey, Dee, come on out. So I had her come out of the room, and I locked my daughter's door, and I said, hey, we don't want to do that. We don't want to invade someone's personal space. I said, just like my daughter, even though this is her home, she's not going to go in the room you're sleeping in and go through your stuff. So you need to do the same, okay? Be respectful to her. Don't go through her stuff. But other than that, I mean, Dee was great. I mean, she just had this personality. Like my daughter had some friends over, and I spoke with my daughter ahead of time. I said, look, Dee is here. We don't want her to feel left out. And she was like, no, no, no. She was like, I already talked to my friends. They know, they're cool with it. And so when the friends came over, Dee, my daughter was like, hey, come on. And so Dee went in there with them, and they were sitting around talking, and I could hear them in there laughing and talking. And so I think she really fit right in. Like even at later that night, when my daughter went off and did her own thing, we, as I mentioned, we always tell the teens, we give them the option. Hey, do you want to go to your room? Do you want to stay here? You can watch TV with us, or you can, go to the other TV and watch something. But Dee was like, no, I know that usually the teens want to go off by themselves, and totally understandable, right? Because they have a lot going on. There's a lot to think about. They're trying to process everything. And a lot of times they don't want to be around, a bunch of people, at least not immediately. But Dee was like, no, she was like, I don't want to be by myself. So she sat with us, and we sat in the family room and just watched TV. And I think it was just something silly, some game show or something. I don't even think it was a movie. And yeah, she just sat up with us, and just seemed to fit right in with the family. So she was with us for a very short time, and then the caseworker picked her up to take her to whatever the permanent placement was. So if Dee is ever watching this, I hope she knows that I really enjoyed her personality, and wish she could have stayed longer. So aside from Dee, we also had A, who was a Black female. She was probably around 14 or 15. I actually have quite a bit of stories about her, so I may save her for a separate video. And I know you all just heard that noise. I am not a professional video recorder or anything. I'm real. This is why I, I don't do editing. I don't do things like that. So that's one of the things that are typical in my house. There isn't a lot of quiet time for me. So, and that's totally okay right now. I will save A, the teen, a separate video for her because I have thought of a lot of stories, a lot of things I can share about her. We had another teen named A. She was a Caucasian white female. She was roughly 16 years old. She was with us for several days, but I don't have a lot to share about her, other than the fact she was very quiet. She seemed very sweet. She wasn't like, disrespectful at all, but she was very quiet. You know, she stayed in her room most of the time. I set out like a towel, washcloth for her. The bathroom's right across the hall. After probably like on day 3, I realized the towel and the washcloth were still there. So I did encourage her. I said, hey, get up, get a shower. You're going to feel much better. And what I think I noticed after those couple of days is she probably was feeling a little depressed. So even though she was quiet, I think it was more of just processing being brought into custody and all of that. And she was very thin. She didn't eat much. But she too fit right into our family. So much so that we ended up going over my mother-in-law's house for like a cookout or something. And she went and she was, speaking to people. She didn't seem uncomfortable, like here it is, this, young white girl, teenager, with all these Black people. And she didn't seem uncomfortable at all. She was, like I said, she didn't talk a lot, but she came in, spoke, was smiling. And, one of the family members had asked her about school, and she was saying that she had gotten kicked out of school, and they were like, why'd you get kicked out of school? And she was like fighting. And then they were like, no, you shouldn't be fighting. You should not, find ways to resolve conflict instead of fighting. She was like, I was defending myself. So she was like, they usually pick on me because I'm so little. And so people want to beat me up. She was like, I was defending. So then I think my mother-in-law asked, well, did you win the fight? And she was like, I did. So sorry, I'm not advocating fighting at all, but I'm just saying this is one of those stories from A that still tickles me to this day. Just her little personality, again, quiet, reserved, but she spoke up and made it clear that she was defending herself. So as I said, we've had several more teens. It looks like I'm going to have to do either a part 3 or maybe break out some of the other teens and have their own videos. We'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you all watching and for your support. Thanks.